Ready, set, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our extraordinary council meeting for the 11th of February. We have got one item on our agenda today, and that is a decision item around waste and recycling services contract. But we will just start as we would normally do so. But just looking around the room, I don't believe there's any apologies to receive. Our health and safety requirements have not changed. Should we need to exit the room, we know our assembly points and the doors that we would exit. I will read the affirmation because it is a decision item, and we need to consider and give us time to get in the right space. So we do pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skills, wisdom and judgment throughout the discussions and deliberations ahead of us today, in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of Haranui District at large. We commit individually and as council to the principles of integrity and respect, and to upholding the values that we believe distinguish and enrich our district. Thank you. In regard to the item in front of you today, councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Thank you, Robbie.
Our company has provided some services into this area, though not directly for the contractor. So check the CEO advice and afterwards.
So no conflict, so you'll contribute and vote accordingly.
Yes.
Thank you, that's fine. Thank you for seeking the appropriate advice as well. We do have a recording device for accuracy. Thank you, Graham.
Yes, thank you. We're live streaming.
Live streaming, thank you. I'm aware of one item of urgent business, and that's a leave of absence. So Karen, would you speak to that now?
Yes, thanks very much. I'm just seeking leave of absence for a week later this month, if I may. I've already given a date.
The dates. Yep, that's fine. Thank you. The mover and seconder that we received that, Vanessa and Fiona, all in agreement, or any others? All in. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I also wanted to request a leave of absence.
Right. Okay.
I haven't advised you yet, Murray, because it's just very late notice, but I am asking for leave of absence from the 24th of February to the 10th of March, please. So I will follow that up with an email to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. So I might. Oh, I'll take you as a mover and a seconder. Will that matter that she's?
Can I do both?
Yeah. Can you advise me? It's quickie, isn't it?
Quick, there's no
No.
genuine interest really.
Okay, so we'll accept the mover and a seconder being Vanessa and Fiona for the leaves of absences. Is that, you're comfortable with that? All right, all in agreement to that, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? It's been granted. Thank you both. Well, is there any other urgent business? Thank you. So that takes us over to the report in front of us, and that's the waste and recycling services contract. Andrew, we have come prepared and read the paper, and I'm sure that councillors have all received the following specification document that Dan sent out on Friday. So just to check in, councillors have all had a chance to read that through as well? Yes. Thank you. So Andrew, if I just ask you to take us through this paper and I guess clarify any questions that may be in the minds of councillors. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. So the purpose of this report is to seek council's approval for the technical specification for the waste contract, which we'll just refer to as the waste contract for the purposes of this discussion. Well, I have a summary. The specification has been prepared to allow us to go out for tender for the waste and recycling services contract with a targeted start date of the 1st of November this year. The specification is based on the existing service, providing the existing service with the existing methods, by a couple of changes which I'll highlight to you as we go on. But generally, it's the same service, same method as we do now. And the officer recommendation is that the council approve the technical specification for that contract. So by way of background, we've had some workshops, or a workshop where we discussed bagged versus wheelie bin and what some of the constraints were for wheelie bins. And we also had a council meeting on the 26th of November, where council approved going forward for tendering on the basis of the user pays bag system that we currently have, rather than pursuing a wheelie bin option at this point in time, but with an instruction that officers prepare wheelie bin options for wheelie bin collection services for inclusion in the 2027 long-term plan. So just save that point because I just want to touch on that when we get to the contract, the proposed contract duration. So since that meeting, we've prepared this technical specification. The contract's prepared on a 3-year plus 1 year plus 1 year timeframe, and the wording in the contract spec is to make it a decision point at the 3-year mark as to whether council continues with that contract or whether council wants to do something different at that point. And that's to allow that ability to change the method if council chooses to do so. So it's not an automatic performance-based rollover that's proposed in the specification. So the long-term plan, all going well, would be signed off in July 2027, and the 3-year term of this contract, should it, as long as we get everything done on time, would run to November 2028. So there's that window there for future changes. So it's because of the value of it, has to go through the open tender process. I just wanted to cover that we haven't been able to give you a definitive cost until we've done tendering. And what was allowed for in the long-term plan budget was a 35% cost escalation between the current contract and the new contract. Just wanted to highlight the points from I guess, shall I move on to highlighting bits of the spec that I want to highlight now, or do you want to stop the questions at this point?
Yes, I'll just see if there's any questions in the overall context of what you've talked through as far as the paper goes, and then we'll go into the specs.
Right.
Just to check in, is there any questions just to clarify the information that Andrew's just shared? Right, let's go into the specifications then, thank you.
Cool, so I'm conscious that the spec's really long and I'm not going to go through it in great detail. I just wanted to sort of caveat that it has some wording to be tweaked still, so there's parts like where it refers to council, it should refer to the principal or the engineer generally, and there's a few of those that we haven't all tidied up yet. So there's some final wording adjustments to make to the spec, but there's no intention to make any material changes to it. So the spec continues to call for weekly curbside collections. And the weekly curbside collection of glass in Hanmer Springs as it is now, but it also adds the weekly curbside collection of glass from Amberley from 1st of July 2026, which is what we've allowed for in the long-term plan, and we allowed that time frame because we were under an obligation to be doing that by 2027. It continues to exclude the operation of the weighbridges at Amberley and Hanmer, so that would still be run by staff directly employed by council and managed by council. There was a discussion point at the earlier workshop, and there didn't seem to be any strong views to make a change in that area. The specification retains the current hours of operation for all transfer stations, which means that if we do get the Amberley hours amended and go through the resource consent process to do that, we would have to do a variation to change the contract hours for that transfer station as well. It retains the current rural collection points for rural pickup of rubbish bags. Stipulates curbside collection to be between 8 AM and 6 PM, which I believe is the same as current, and that the glass collections that are done on the same day as the other curbside collections for each township. It's also it's got a stipulation that Hanmer Springs is collected on a Monday because that's the day that holiday home checkout seems to work best, but the rest of the days are up for the contractor to propose and council to approve. Covered the extension, so we've tried to word in the spec just that the extension will be essentially at the completion of the 3-year period. Council will decide if it will continue with the current contract, so it's not, just wanted to highlight that, not an automatic rollover. sorry, I'm just flicking through now. So it retains the current sorting and splitting of recycling bags at Amberley transfer station. So I think councillors are aware that when we collect all the rubbish and bags, we are paying the contractor to split them and remove visible contamination from them. The EcoSort facility requires that recycling goes in there loose, so at a minimum we'll have to continue splitting the bags. The advantage of getting rid of contamination is maintaining that low contamination rate and try and avoid getting any recycling rejected. So performance criteria that are written to this contract, particularly around transfer stations and the transport, the performance criteria mainly focus on the maximisation of loads transported. So if the truck can carry 10 tonnes, that it's as close to 10 tonnes as possible to make sure it's efficient, and the maintaining low contamination rates, as well as meeting health and safety requirements and the things you'd expect. But efficient transport, low contamination rates is the strong drivers in the performance criteria for this spec. I just in transfer stations, so since we signed this last contract in 2019, as seems to happen in waste, various things, the service evolves, but recycling streams are added. So in transfer stations, we've now explicitly written into the contract things like specific procedures for fridges, freezers and air conditioning units, which just used to be handled like normal scrap metal, but now have to be handled special because they have to be degassed. So that's something that's already been done, but now it's explicitly in the contract. Same with the likes of loading mulch and moving green waste around, which is something we weren't doing when we signed the last contract, and is now part of the deal for running the transfer stations. Tyre wise, so joining that scheme and the contractor having responsibility for making sure the tyres actually meet the acceptance criteria.
Does that cost us, like, to do the refrigerator now the rules have changed? Is that more time consuming for our staff to do that, and then do we get more because we decommissioned that stuff, or how does that affect the bottom lines as far as how we're going to deliver this contract?
And we've added a charge to those items to cover the cost, because we actually have to get a qualified person to come out and do the degassing of them.
Okay.
So yeah, we're charging to cover that cost, and then it's able to carry on and be accepted as scrap metal. It wasn't the scrap metal processor who said no, we can't have this anymore. It was actually an inquiry and then a direction from the Environmental Protection Agency. Always get that mixed up. Make an inquiry about what we were doing, and we realised that needed to happen.
Right. Okay.
There's also an advice note in there about Cheviot transfer station, because we've got a plan to build a new transfer station, and we're also doing some thinking now about whether we build the same thing or come up with a different way of doing it to try and meet that local wish to not build the wrong thing. So we just wanted to flag that in the contract, that what's there now might not be the same way we operated during this contract period. I think those are all the bits that I have highlighted for you, so I'm happy to just open up to questions from you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Andrew. And as you say, it's a very wordy, comprehensive document to understand in its fullness. So we're happy to take questions from councillors. So I'll start with you, Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Andrew, just I see there's no mention of the Mount Lyford collection. That's obviously a separate.
Yeah,
that's it down the wire.
Yeah, that's a good point. Through you, Madam Mayor, it's currently a separate contract, and we wanted to. It's very efficient again, so we didn't include it in this contract because we think it would be more efficient to keep it separate out, basically.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Okay, subsidiarity. Yeah, that's cool. Is there any other questions? Just to clarify, no points. So, Dave.
Through the chair, just wondering whether a 3-year contract versus a 2-year contract, just, you know, we did come up a way of having the wheelie bins in the future. It's just kicking the can down the road a long way. If it's in someone else working out a way of being more efficient, seems to be the. We want to do it, we just haven't figured out how we can do it. So is there a disadvantage of 2 years versus 3 years?
Through you, I mean, as I understand it, we always risk a higher cost up front with the shorter the contract is. I think because we're looking at putting the wheelie bin or any wheelie bin proposal as a long-term plan type solution to allow us to consult on it, to allow us to get the financials right for it, that you know, if you went 2 years with this contract, you'd be looking at November 2027, and you'd be looking at long-term sign-off, what, July 2027. It would only give you 4 months to tender a contract. So yeah, so we probably get more higher cost from having a 2-year contract rather than a 3. We're probably going to have higher costs for having a 3-year contract rather than a 5. But also I do think if you don't approve wheelie bins until the long-term plan approval, that a 2-year contract doesn't actually give you enough time to a new system with a new contract.
That's a good question, Michelle.
Add to that, Madam
Yeah.
There's a capital cost to the contractor to gearing up to do this contract, and that capital cost will be better spread over 3 years than it is over 2. Even the existing contract will have to replace part of its fleet, etc., for a new contract. And if somebody new is coming in, unless they were coming off another contract somewhere else, which seems unlikely, given the type of rubbish collection we have, they're going to have to gear up a capital plant to do this.
I suppose through the chair, I'm just thinking a neighbouring council may be able to come and offer those services to us. So just to our ratepayers and whatever if they want, we're just kicking the can down the further and further. So it's because as you alluded to in the past, other councils do shared contracts with each other, so they can easily gear up to do a bigger area. I'm just asking that, because I just know you do hear people saying we'll be coming into the 21st and having wheelie bins, so we just got to figure out how. So, and I'm an impatient person,
Yeah, I think it's a good question to raise, and I guess the response that that it's to implement any change and to bring it forward will narrow the opportunity to get the best out of the 2 years. So I guess that's something we've got to balance up, isn't it, really? Yeah. Vince, you have a question?
I'm just thinking, but you've got to remember that capital cost we talk about, so it could be the end up costing the customer a lot of money, because the short-term contract, he's having to load it, because if he's going to buy new compactors and all that, knowing that in 3 years' time might be wheelie bins. So I just think if I was a contractor, I would want certainty. One of the council deciding they will change course.
Yeah.
We haven't really done a lot of homework with our community on the cost of wheelie bins. What the charges are quite a bit.
Well, I guess that's what I think I'm hearing, that the life of this first 3 years will give us an opportunity in a sensible manner to consider those costs and the impact and the choices that we've got to implement a different type of service. So I think that's the scope that I've heard. Yep.
No, I just also note that, sorry.
No, yeah, you go now, go to Vanessa. Thank you.
If people want wheelie bins right now, there are private contractors out here who do wheelie bins and apparently do so efficiently. So if people really want wheelie bins, then they can have wheelie bins. Just not through our contract.
Okay, thank you. I think Vanessa.
Hamish just took the words right.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Vanessa. I should have come to you first. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for that, and thank you for raising it, Dave. It's given us a chance to sort of tease out our understanding of why we are looking at a model that we're looking at. Karen, you've got a question?
I just wondered, looking at the numbers of bins at some of the towns have got, I noticed that Amberley's got 11 and Culverden's got 12. And I wondered if from time to time you do a sort of a look at sort of rationalising placement and things like that every now and then.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's something that has been happening over the last probably 18 months, and I think we've been putting it through the operations committee as we've been making some changes as we go. And I didn't highlight it, but we have got a section in the Littleton section here that says we are interested in working with the contractor to keep streamlining and finding efficiencies in those bins.
Sure.
There are lots of options, like where you put them and how big you put them and
Yes,
that kind of thing. And
yes,
we've
I was
sort of
thinking.
we've tried to cover in here that we want to continue being able to do that.
So this the wording enables us to be flexible and evolve that if necessary. Or
Yeah, that's what we've written.
Are you good with that, Karen?
I was going to try and
You're
find
gonna
that
try and
wording for
find
you.
it?
if I
Okay,
can
and then
find
I'll
it
tell
quickly.
you.
if it's in there and
Um,
you're comfortable with it, I'm
Yeah.
happy with that.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the thrust of it anyway, is to say we want to work with you to keep being able to streamline this,
Yeah.
the service, and a number of bins might change.
Sure, thanks, Karen. Tom?
I wonder if the contractor, knowing that there is a groundswell of opinion that's favouring wheelie bins, whether the contractor themselves might investigate over the next few years, might investigate a wheelie bin operation and then incur the costs of investigation and work and maybe, you know, come back to us with costs, you know, in 2.5 years' time, to actually say, if you wanted a wheelie bin service, this is what we could provide at this cost, rather than us go through that process. You know, they might actually do the investigation themselves and report back to us without it incurring us costs, but you know, might provide a solution that they might look at.
How would that fit in the procurement fee in this? Yeah.
Madam Mayor, they might, but by what we found is that contractors are probably rightly so quite cagey around this kind of thing, given that it will always have to be, well, for the values, it have to be an open tender process, so contractors are not forthcoming with costing.
Yes.
We've had discussions internally about whether we could potentially get a waste company to design and price a model for us. Whether they'd be willing to do it, or whether that'd be something you'd pay them for, I'm not sure, but I mean, it's possible. And in the front bit of the contract around sort of that sets some of the sort of tone and principles, we do talk about innovation. So I mean, it's a conversation that we could have. I'm just not confident that it's something they'd want to hand over to us.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, question?
Maybe just a quick question. Just for clarification, is there a government legislation that says we need to look at this for Amberley? Was that all to fit in at some stage? I remember something about that.
Food waste things.
Yeah,
sorry,
through you,
yeah.
Madam Mayor, so there were five initiatives that were either going to be legislation or are now legislation, and one of them, which was the standardised recycling, is the only one that remains. With the change of government, the other four have been abandoned, so that for us that means that we should be collecting glass in anywhere with more than 1,000 residents. We should be collecting the standard set of recyclables. It means that the food waste requirement that we were looking at is no longer. So it's not in this contract. I don't think the intention was ever to put it in this contract. It was to do it separate. But we're likely we won't for sure. I suppose there'll be a discussion for council down the line a little bit.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, just a last, when you're looking at the rubbish bin status, I just see in my carrot, it's a bit of a correction more than anything, and it's got corner of Pam's Cafe. I don't know whether, we all know where that is, but actually the name of the cafe has changed, so it's actually, yeah, so I don't know whether you want to just fix that minor correction.
Yes, we will, thank you. I think I prefer to just, yeah, I prefer to keep the brand names out.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with you to find the best possible words, but that's no longer a current.
Great, thank you.
Robbie?
Yeah, just a couple of things I picked up in the reading. Yeah, I've taken the bin numbers as being the latest count because one central in particular seems to have dropped about, I reckon, 10. So I'll take that as the latest count. I'm pretty sure I understood in the reading that the contractor, he's got to leave his equipment at the compound down here in Amberley, and it's his responsibility, and that's all fair and well. I'd just like assurance that we've got good security and lighting and that we're keeping we've got our bit covered for him. And the other thing, can you just remind me again, I know that the glass collection was coming up anywhere over 1,000 people, and Amberley, you know, we've got to look at it, but we're already doing it in Hamlet. Can you just remind me how we're doing it, how it's happening in Hamlet at the moment, how we're actually physically doing it?
Yes, Madam Mayor, so the contractor may keep their equipment at Amberley, they don't have to, but we do have good fencing, unsure about the lighting, but good cameras down there, so we're reasonably happy with security there. The Hamner Springs collection is done in a blue sort of square looking crate, like the original recycling bins that Christchurch had before wheelie bins. So they're a small, I think about 25 litre crate, manually lifted into the trailer at the moment.
Through there, she said we've got a system that's working okay now, and it could be one option down the track, perhaps.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, that in this contract we've said we'll do it that way in Amberley. Whether that continues past wheelie bins or not.
So is the Hamner one hold about 12 bottles? And those
I can
crates?
squeeze more than that.
It's only a week, Tom. Yeah.
60 bottles.
Yeah, right, so has that explored your questions? Yeah, okay. Councillors, have you explored all the questions around the specifications? Are you, if there's anything more, thank you.
Right, just quickly on section 4.5, the increased tenure. That's an extension of 1 year, but it's a 3 + 1 + 1. So it's all right. Put a second year into there.
Thanks, Pauline.
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to the officer recommendation. You mentioned through the chair, you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, Andrew, that there might be some slight wording changes. So are you seeking for the recommendation to make allowance for those minor editing details?
Yes, I think so, Madam Mayor, is that the best way to deal with that?
That would capture some of the discussion that's, been put forward, I would have thought. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, Pauline, so. It feels like, are you ready to?
In that case, look, I'm really comfortable. That's, it's very clear, and thank you for highlighting all those additional points. It seems that the timing within the contract fits well with our long-term plan and intentions to consult the community further. So I'm absolutely happy to move the officer recommendation with the allowance of any minor wording or editing changes required.
So thank you, Pauline, for that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Fiona. If there's no further questions, I'm going to put that motion. All in agreement to that, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? That motion's carried. Thanks, Andrew. I can imagine that it is a lot of work on all these impacts like this to us, but I really appreciate the detail and the to help guide us through this. So thank you for that. Thanks, councillors. I think there's no further business for today's extraordinary meeting. So I'll bring our meeting to a close. 2 minutes to 10.